So we all know that Warhammer, and especially Warhammer 40k, is the granddaddy of Grimdark. The setting is known for its highly gothic artwork, its unique and twisted take on classic fantasy tropes, the inclusion of a literal hell dimension and a corpse emperor as some of its most iconic themes, and of course most of all its general grim and foreboding atmosphere, which is full of nothing but death, strife and eternal war for all who inhabit its universe. That's right, when it comes to grim and dark, no one does it quite like 40k, or so we thought until now. Because recently you may have noticed that a brand new contender to the ultimate grimdark wargame throne has come along, and its name is Trench Crusade. For those who have been living in a tiny little shoe for the last couple of months, Trench Crusade is a brand new wargame that's taken the Warhammer community and the wider internet by absolute storm. It was the top Kickstarter in its category for months, and it started off with a goal of $66,666, and it ended last week with an incredible $3,331,943 raised by over 20,000 backers. So many numbers. Even the creator of Helldivers has shown interest in collaborating with Trench Crusade, and if that wasn't wild enough, then the Napoleon Dynamite, well, the actor, I guess, not the actual character Napoleon Dynamite. But anyway, Napoleon Dynamite is currently making a whole documentary on grimdark wargaming featuring Trench Crusade. And we are definitely now in the wacky warehouse timeline, and it's a bit weird, but if Napoleon Dynamite's making wargaming documentaries, then I don't know, I'm in. But why is everyone suddenly so hyped for this new game, and what's so special about it anyway, which made 20,000 people drop over $3 million between them just to see it come to life? Well, if you click this video, then maybe you're wondering the same thing, and I'm glad to say that you are in the right place, because for the last couple of months, I've been secretly deep diving into all things Trench Crusade, from the lore, the artwork, the tabletop gameplay, and the incredible miniature range, so that in this video I can tell you exactly why everyone is so excited to be a part of this brand new terrifying masterpiece, which has managed to out-grimdark even Warhammer itself. Whoosh. Digging a trench. Going down. Trench Crusade was created by the esteemed video game concept artist Mike Francina, with the game design being led by the wonderful Tuomas Pirinen, famed for his general spooky aura, friendly attitude, and his work on game systems like Mordheim and Warhammer Fantasy VI during his time at Games Workshop. Them, along with a very talented team of artists, writers, and sculptors, including several high-profile Games Workshop and gaming industry behemoths, have created an alternative World War I setting and tabletop game full of mud and loads of unsubtle religious imagery called Trench Crusade. The game itself is a skirmish-style wargame where smaller squads of around 7 to 15 miniatures will be the focus of your rosters, rather than 500 miniature-strong armies like we're used to in games like Warhammer. But the thing which sets this game apart from all the others, and the thing which has also set the wargaming and the Warhammer community's hearts aflame, is the setting itself. Which brings me neatly onto the first reason why I think you too should also be falling in love with Trench Crusade, and that is its lore. So I'm gonna start this section with just a quick warning for anyone who may need it. Whilst we all know that Warhammer is grimdark and has loads of themes which aren't always kid appropriate, I still think it's possible to find bits of lore and miniatures here and there that are fine for introducing a young fan to, and Games Workshop sort of agrees and backs up this mentality too. However, in my opinion, Trench Crusade is a little bit different. Like, I think you're gonna struggle to find a part of the lore which isn't terrifying or shocking, and I think that's kind of the point of Trench Crusade. You're supposed to be horrified by all this weird stuff that's going on. So I'd say in this case, the setting and the lore that I'm about to share with you may not be child appropriate, so maybe make sure you tuck in your little ones before we start with this more adult story time. Additionally, Additionally, this setting is an alternative reality World War I setting, and will obviously include themes like war, famine, and most importantly, references to real-life countries and to the writings of Abrahamic religions, which many people still believe in today. If you think that you might struggle to separate this fictional story from real-world beliefs, past and current events, or even your own opinions on non-fictional things, or if this video brings up some religious trauma and makes you feel uncomfortable, then please feel free to take a step back and exit this video, or come back and watch it another day when you're feeling better. I promise, absolutely no judgment, no worries. It's totally fine, I understand. But with that out the way, it is now time for us to plunge deep into the hellish world of Trench Crusade. In the world of Trench Crusade, a demonic artifact was uncovered by the Knights Templar during their siege of Jerusalem in 1099, sparking what has now become known as the First Heresy. This event caused the city to transform into the literal gates of hell, from which infernal fires spew from the ground and monstrous legions from all 7 levels of Gehenna ascend to the earth to wreak torment on humanity and the faithful. As a result of this catastrophe, a full third of mankind fell away from the light of God and the Church and aligned themselves with the forces of Satan, plunging the world into an age of corruption and unspeakable horrors and changing the course of humanity forever. In 1346, Beelzebub unleashed the Black Grail, a wave of disease and pestilence that caused agonizing deaths which swept over the entire earth, killing all who found itself unfortunate enough to lay in its path. Even more disturbingly, the Grail disfigured and twisted the most sinful and even willing into grotesque, bloated, worm-like creatures who do not live per se, but writhe up in a half-living state in order to serve their rotten demonic master in defiance of God's divine plan. Amid the chaos, humanity struggled to survive, but in 1102, the faithful built Antioch, a heavily fortified city designed to stand up against the forces of hell. Whilst it was destroyed by a mysterious infernal weapon 300 years later, Antioch was rebuilt and became New Antioch, which still stands as humanity's last bastion against the demonic horde, a hub of technological advancement, and a melting pot of different cultures of the faithful. But these technological advancements in question are just as much rooted in science as they are in unfettered religious fervor, making each of the faithful's instruments of war a twisted amalgamation of flesh, metal, and worship. One of the most terrifying creations of the church was its paladin program, in which 17-foot-tall holy warriors were created by feeding mortals the cloned flesh and blood of the Son of God, and thus they became so sanctified with holiness that they can even venture into the depths of hell itself. Whilst 12 were created, now only 10 remain, with one falling in battle and another rumoured to have turned in favour of Lucifer, a claim which is considered by the church to be completely false and in of itself highly heretical. Another horrific creation of the church are the mysterious observers, the most faithful and shrouded of mortals who, in their lives of training and solitude, become capable of hearing God's word in his own divine voice. This intense, constant, and perspective-shattering experience causes permanent torment to these observers, who, in their agony, develop unnatural combat abilities due to their now advanced perception of time, space, and the will of God. Meanwhile, those of the Islamic faith who were forced out of Jerusalem formed the Great Sultanate of the Iron Wall of the Two Horns that pierced the sky, a mighty society built on their advancements in weaponry, munitions, and alchemical experiments and the creations which come from them. Perhaps the most famous of these creations are the Lions of Jabir, and the Sultan himself is known to have 77 of these beasts in his personal guard, and they are made in their hundreds to aid the Sultanate in their war against Hell. These lions, however, are not born, but rather grown and created through dangerous experiments, and the process of creating a lion is fraught with peril, often resulting in the untimely deaths of the alchemists involved. The lions, though, are not always lion-like in form or shape, and each are described as being unique masterworks of their creators. However, the unpredictability of their creation also results in some of these lions being made with near human-like intelligence. In a horrific twist of fate, they are unable to convey their thoughts or emotions, leaving them trapped in a state of constant pain and existential horror, with their own existence becoming a painful paradox as they are acutely aware of their own reality, but are incapable of expressing it, making these eternally tormented beasts the perfect weapon to set upon an enemy. By 1914, where we find ourselves currently, much of the Middle East has become a desolate no man's land, ravaged by centuries of holy and unholy wars. In this grim landscape, the forces of Hell, the Sultanate, the Church, and its ragtag hordes of trench pilgrims all converge, fighting for dominance over both heaven and earth. And I cannot stress enough that everything I've just described is just a tiny small peek into all of the already incredible and terrifying world building that has gone into this project already. I shortened it all down and skipped a bunch of stuff, and I didn't even get to talk about some of my favorite things like the artillery witch, which summons these hellish bombs on the battlefield, and the fact that the Church launched a space program in 1899, and I have to know more about that. And this little wheelie freak over here, I love him so much, he's so cool. And if all of this sounds cool to you, then I implore you to read the lore primer, which I will pop a link to down in my description box, because trust me, it's all just so cool. I love the setting so much already. But with that little taster out the way, can we really say for sure that this setting is more grimdark than Warhammer 40k? Well, I think that there is a chance that it might be. So as you've probably picked up from all of the artwork that I showed over the lore section, this game has a very cool, unique, and most importantly, extremely grimdark aesthetic. The term grimdark is indeed inspired by Warhammer 40k's famous In the Grimdark Future prelude, but has now become a term which can be used to describe a lot of stuff outside of just Warhammer, which pertains usually to a dreary, dystopian society, often with themes of sadness, loneliness, and with some dark fantasy elements usually incorporated too. Some easy examples of things which are considered to be grimdark are games like Dark Souls or the entire Souls franchise, Darkest Dungeon, Fear and Hunger, and movies like Pandorum or most recently The Green Knight. And all of these things fit the bill of being grimdark without being overtly Warhammery. In my opinion, whilst you can see that Trench Crusade fits very neatly into this category with its strong visual language, which looks very illustrious and soulsy at times, it definitely stands apart both visually and thematically from Warhammer and the rest of the settings in the grimdark genre. The heavy use of Christian and religious imagery, in combination with the often distorted body proportions of the character art, and the beautiful use of dark desaturated colour with the occasional slap in the face of a blood red element, or a contrasting flash of holy light cutting through a muddy battlefield, is so striking and foreboding, and so well executed. But apart from the artwork itself, I do feel like the setting of Trench Crusade is a little bit more grim and nasty, because the focus is on humanity's perversion and corruption as a whole, as opposed to the widespread suffering of humanity and a huge amount of other alien races over a whole galaxy. The suffering that we see in Trench Crusade is heavily rooted in religious concepts which, depending on where you grew up, are often household names. Religion is ancient and tied to very human feelings like fear of the unknown, a desire for divine love, or just hope for something beyond death. And I think it's this which makes the horror in Trench Crusade feel a lot more shocking, universal, and timeless. It's kinda hard to describe, but there's something so captivating about humanity's faith being tested by unimaginable horrors in our own timeline, or the idea of God existing during World War I, and that the church can grant immense holy powers which actually exist to those who have consumed the cloned flesh of his son. It's shocking, yes, but more so I find it just deeply intriguing, and the entire setting, like I said, has just got me absolutely hooked and desperate to find out more about this twisted take on the course of mankind. Now that you know a little bit more about what Trench Crusade is and its general vibe and aesthetic, let's take a little look at my personal favourite part of any wargame, the miniature range. The current Trench Crusade miniature range has 6 incredible warbands which you can choose from, each covering a region or religion which we've read of in the lore. Firstly, we have the Heretic Legions, the warband which includes many of the wretched humans who fell to the whims of the devil himself and became twisted perversions of God's intent. This warband also includes some other larger abominations too, like the hulking Sin Eater and the menacing Warwolf. This set of miniatures is one of my favourites though, because it includes 2 of my absolute favourites from the lore and the artwork, which is a chorister who sings unholy hymns until the ears of the faithful burst and bleed, and of course the absolutely iconic Artillery Witch. The Court of the Seven-Headed Serpent seems to focus not so much on the fallen of humanity as it does the actual spawn of Lucifer himself, fresh out of hell. If you're a fan of Chaos and 40k or the Dark Souls franchise in general, then this is definitely going to be the warband for you. This set boasts some absolutely huge and outrageously designed demon miniatures, including this Praetor, Sorcerer, and this awesome desecrated saint who is absolutely terrifying. I mean, look at him. He is just so freaky and I absolutely love it. The final way that you can pledge your own allegiance to the forces of hell is with the Black Grail itself, which hosts the festering followers of the High Lord Beelzebub. This warband is so cool and also absolutely disgusting. Like, imagine Nurgle but amped up to 11 with no Nurglings or funny little faces to make everything okay. My particular favourite in this set though has to be the Plague Knight, because there's something so stoic and almost pretty about him, which really juxtaposes all the other grossness in this warband in such a perfect and creepy way. Moving away from the forces of hell now with another one of my personal favourite warbands, the Iron Sultanate. As someone who is a huge fan of Mesopotamian and Sumerian mythology and all the awesome aesthetics which go along with it, this is such a great and well-designed warband to see. Having read into the Iron Sultanate's lore, I'm delighted that some of the most standout elements have passed down into its miniature range, particularly the Jabirian Alchemist and their horrific lions look so cool here in miniature form, and the Yubazi Captain and their utterly disturbing harpy pet as well is definitely making this warband one of my absolute favourites out of the whole lot. On the side of the church, of course, we have the denizens of New Antioch, who demonstrate the perfect mix of holy prowess and the power of a good old-fashioned bolt-action rifle and a trench coat. Since New Antioch is known for its higher levels of innovation in technology and the use of the church's latest inventions, in this warband we can see some heavy mechanized infantry units fighting alongside the church's ecclesiarchy, who all have 6 snipers, by the way. Like, hell yeah, old man. I mean, God wills it. Finally, we have what I believe may be the fan favourite so far, the Trench Pilgrims, and for me, these guys kind of feel like what Trench Crusade is all about. They're a bunch of freaky dudes who are just going out of their way to travel to the Holy Land in order to probably die and prove to God how much they love him or how sorry they are because they've all lived a life of impurity and sin. This is another warband which includes a few of my absolute favourites from the lore, like the Communicant, and this behemoth shrine Anchorite, which is a 12-foot tall living shrine of devotion and torture, which inside of its spiked and hooked interior resides a perpetually agonized monk who controls this maddening altar of war. And like I said, it feels truly iconic and so evocative of the setting itself. If you missed the initial Kickstarter and you're excited to get your hands on the official Trench Crusade miniatures that I've just shown you, then you may need to wait a week or two after this video airs because unfortunately the Kickstarter just finished. But I really recommend that you either join the Trench Crusade newsletter or the Trench Crusade Discord in order to keep up to date with the official releases, which will be coming out super soon, and other third-party miniatures which you can get access to right now. But yes, I did manage to get my grubby little hands on some of the STLs and physical miniatures, including some of my absolute favourites in the range. And I will definitely be making some grimdark and maybe not so grimdark painting content on them soon for my channel, and I am so excited to do that because the miniatures look so good physically as well. So let me know in the comments section which warband you'd pick and why, and which faction you think is the coolest, because I'm currently torn between the Iron Sultanate and the Trench Pilgrims, but the Artillery Witch is definitely my favourite single miniature, of course. But what makes the Trench Crusade miniature range so cool in my opinion is the fact that it is totally open to creativity, and it actively encourages 3D printing, kit bashing, converting, and even miniatures being made for the system by other creatives and studios via their third-party licensing plans. This is a really refreshing take on how to grow a product and a system using a community which is already brimming with creativity and talent, and I cannot wait to see how this plans out in the future because I can already tell that this freedom of creativity is gonna produce some absolutely awesome miniatures. Whilst I've not played a game of Trench Crusade yet, the mechanics of the game seem to reflect trench warfare pretty accurately, with the focus being on smaller skirmish type groups engaging in war in the middle of a board full of obstacles and terrain. And I'm personally someone who really loves a smaller warband skirmish type of game because it feels way less daunting and far more achievable for us as dedicated hobbyists. You can focus on customizing and painting an incredible small group of minis rather than stressing over finishing an entire army of 500 miniatures, and I think this can really emphasize the personal connection between you and your miniatures as them being your guys, which is super important in my opinion. On top of that, the ability to start a warband and then finish it really quickly is absolutely perfect for a brand new game system because it means that communities can pop up really quickly where people have already completed warbands that they are ready to play with. The game itself has a bunch of familiar elements of skirmish-style wargames which you should recognize from classic TTRPGs, such as taking turns to activate one miniature at a time in order to move, shoot, do special moves, and get into melee combat. But one thing that I really like the sound of when it comes to the game's mechanics is the way that things are resolved using dice rolls. To make this about me for a minute, even though this is my channel, I have something called dyscalculia, which can make reading and understanding numbers as challenging for me as reading letters and words are for someone who has dyslexia. Because of this, Warhammer's endless stat lines, constant calculations, and having to work out weapon versus toughness rules can be really tough for me to comprehend, to say the very least. And for me, unfortunately, this can make playing Warhammer quite scary, and sometimes I'm worried that I'll come across an opponent who maybe doesn't understand things like why I take so long to take a turn or why I consistently get my stats and rules a little bit mixed up. It sucks. It's really not fun. In Trench Crusade, from what I can tell, all or most actions are resolved using just 2d6 on a simple action success chart, with a result of a 2 to 6 indicating failure, 7 to 11 being a success, and a 12+ being a critical success, and damage being ranked from minor hit to out of action in a similar way with another roll of a 2d6. Other modifiers such as risky moves and of course your own character's / warband's buffs or debuffs will obviously alter the rolls either positively or negatively using plus dice or negative dice. But at its core, the system genuinely doesn't look scary to me, and that's a really good sign, and I think it could be fun for both new starts in TTRPGs and also seasoned players as well. On top of that, as a quick aside, the rules all exist online as a kind of living rulebook and are completely free, and will always be free for anyone to access at any time. So you can start planning your warband and strategies with your friends right now, and again, another super great move, which just makes Trench Crusade feel even more accessible to its community and even people who might just want to give it a go. Which brings me on to the final reason why I think you should get into Trench Crusade today, which is the lovely community which has already grown around it. Between the incredible and engaging lore and artwork, the free rule set, and the fact that the miniatures are both incredible and come with near complete creative freedoms, it is no wonder that in just a few months, Trench Crusade has grown a huge fanbase. You may already know this if you've clicked on my video, but there is already a bunch of Trench Crusade YouTube videos being made almost daily, including full lore videos, battle reports, miniature reviews, and everything in between. And with Trench Crusade's recent success, I reckon that the amount of people making content about it is only gonna skyrocket from here. There is a very active Discord, and people are already painting up their warbands and posting them on Instagram and other social media platforms, and I've even somehow managed to stumble upon the Trench Crusade TikTok algorithm, which is weird, but it's way better than most of the other stuff TikTok gives me, so I am pleased with that as well. But my point is that every single corner of the internet does seem to be buzzing with excitement for this game, which makes it such a cool and interesting environment to be in right now. If you want to stay up to date on news, releases, and join in with all us other little Trench Crusade weirdos, then I highly recommend joining the Trench Crusade's official Discord, which I will pop an invite link to in my description box, because it's just a great place to be, where now hundreds of people are sharing their list ideas, miniatures, and are generally just chatting and speculating about the lore and the setting too. So hopefully I will see you guys there, because I too am so excited to dive into this setting and to see what the community that I know and love can produce when given the opportunity to unleash their ultimate grimdark selves. But for now, I'm afraid that is all we have time for. As usual, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for being rogues. I will see you in the next one. Bye! Bye bye!